Hi, welcome to episode 369 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura and I'm also known as Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where this episode and every episode's show notes will be. And I have an Etsy shop where I sell my handspun and my knitting patterns, and that is also called The Corner of Knit and Tea. Hi, how are you? It is Monday, March... I do know what day it is. 14th! It is Pie Day! Yes, it is Pie Day. And I hope that you are having a lovely start to your week. Things here are going well. I got tons of crafty stuff done over the weekend. Everything actually that was on my list, which almost never happens. I finished some projects that I have to share with you, and I have some new cast-ons to share with you that I am looking forward to. I am getting through all my tasks today. Today is kind of an overloaded day, but it is about 1 o'clock and I decided to sit down and chat with you. The weather here is warming up. It is in the 60s, although today it is overcast and kind of gloomy outside. I guess we're gonna do a little bit of back and forth, but the temperatures promise to be nice. And yesterday it was actually sunny and beautiful, and I got to do my exercise outside. And I am hoping that trend continues because even just 30 minutes of sunshine a day does wonders for my mood. So I hope that you are doing well, that you are healthy, and that the events of the world are not keeping you too down. I feel like there's an elephant in the room when I don't talk about the pandemic and what is going on in Ukraine and everything else. And though I focus on my crafts and what I am doing on this podcast, that doesn't mean that I'm not thinking about it. And I'm not necessarily a fan of distracting oneself from everything that is going on, but at the same time, there is only so much that we can do from where we are. And some self-care is allowing ourselves to enjoy and appreciate the things that we are able to do right now. So that is all I will say about that. Today's tea that I am drinking was sent to me by a lovely viewer. It is called Murchie's. It is a Canadian tea blend, and this one is black tea maple chai. And so it's your standard chai with some maple in it. It's delicious and it smells amazing, and I am drinking it today in my favorite Kansas mug. It says, "Dear Dorothy, hate Oz, took the shoes, find your own way home." So that's one of my favorite Kansas jokes. Kansas is, of course, the setting for the Wizard of Oz movie, and so Kansas leans into that really hard, and you can find Wizard of Oz merchandise pretty much everywhere. And so this is one of my favorite mugs. That's hot, but that's going to keep me going through this afternoon. So let's talk about the knits. I actually have a finished knit to share with you today. I am really pleased I managed to finish Talanzia this last week. Talanzia is a pattern by Laura Ayler for kind of an oversized knit tee. It is fairly plain. It is a top-down in the round. It has yoke shaping and then also some raglan shaping. And then when you get to the hem and the cuffs on the short sleeves, that is sort of where the excitement happens, where there's some lace work. So as of last week, I believe I had started the patterns on the back, and I have now finished, and it is actually washed and blocked. So you can see there's kind of this arrow pattern here. In between some yarn overs, and then it's got kind of a diamond shaped lace at the bottom, and then it also has the same treatment on there are short sleeves, but they're not cap sleeves. There is an inch or two knit before you go into some of just the lace border, not the entire border. So it is kind of a fun casual summer tee to wear. I am sending this off. This is actually a sample, so it will go elsewhere, but I am giving some serious consideration to knitting it again, because so I knit, let me go into the details. This is a sample for Zen Yarn Garden. The yarn that I used is their Nightshade Fingering, which is a it is a 3-ply where one of the plies is black, and so the other 2 plies take the yarn. This produces a kind of marled effect in knitting, which is also part of the reason that I picked a relatively simple pattern, because I did not want the marling to detract from the lace. I think it actually is very nice, and it doesn't, I mean, the lace is a little harder to see, but I think it is a nice enough, oh, and there is a line here. I wondered about that. So remember last time when I talked about that I was going to alternate skeins on the sleeves. Well, the deal is this sweater can be knit in 3 skeins, but I didn't plan ahead enough for that so that I could alternate skeins on the entire thing. So I knit 2 skeins into the body, and then right down at the bottom, right before I went into the lace, I needed to start a 3rd skein. So I started the 3rd skein. It was already partway through the border, so it's really just the last few rows, so it doesn't show. And I did the first sleeve with only one yarn, and you can actually see that. There's that very subtle line there. I don't know if you can tell. I looked at it under light and I blocked it and washed it and thought maybe it would be okay, and I do see that very subtle line there. I did go back and bring in the 4th skein for the 2nd sleeve, so the 2nd sleeve, well, it kind of almost looks like maybe it's just a change in tension, because I do sort of see a little line there. Anyway, you can fix this in your own version. So I used Zen Yarn Garden Nightshade Fingering in the red maple colorway, and then I forgot what I was going to tell you about the rest of it. Oh, I knit the size medium, which is set to fit a 37 to 42 inch bust with approximately 1 to 6 inches of positive ease. So the finished size is 43 inches, and so that is where I'm at. It is now off to the photographer. As soon as I finish here, I will take a few photographs, and then it is off to the photographer to get glamour shots, and then this will be available as a kit from Zen Yarn Garden. And I think it's just kind of a fun tee for the summer, and as we are gearing up towards spring and warmer temperatures, you can actually wear wool in the summer. It is cool, it wicks moisture away from your skin, and it doesn't stay super warm. So fingering weight wool, I have several fingering weight wool tees. On the other hand, you could also knit it in cotton, although you would have to, you could probably knit it would probably be best in some sort of a wool cotton blend, because the tee does need some drape to it. I think she actually knit it in a wool silk blend, which would also be nice and cool. The wool will give it a little bit of shape, and I think if you're looking at a garment that's meant to have a significant amount of ease, possibly doing it in cotton is not gonna be the best, because it might stretch out even further and may not shrink back to shape. So that is Tillandsia by Laura Ayler, and that one is done. So that brought me to working on my other work in progress, which I shared with you last week, and I made some good progress on it this week. This is the Rainbow Wings Shawl by Amina Phillip, who is the knitting expat, and I decided to knit it with a variety of mini skeins and larger skeins in my stash. So this is a shawl that starts in a main color. And it is, in the original, it was quite a few speckled colorways, and I have done some of that. So my main color was Slip Stitch Studios, which is in the Notorious RBG colorway, and that is kind of purples and blues, and then it has flashes of neon. And then the wrap does some, it is an asymmetrical triangular wrap. It ends up more almost as a scarf, because it's not super wide, it's very, it's not super tall, it is very long, width-wise. So then you do some short row sections in a variety of colors, and I held all those colors up for you last week, and I really liked them. I took a picture and put it in the, it was the cover of the show episode last week, but there's always kind of the proof in the pudding when you start to knit, and if those colors actually look good together as you knit them. And I think they do. It's been kind of interesting. So this is, oops, that is the wrong side. I should show you the right side. This is the pattern as it stands. So I knit my center triangle in that purple colorway, that Notorious RBG, and it's got purple and lavender and a little bit of blue, and then pops of, like I said, neon, pink and yellow And so I started adding my stripes, and I started with the lightest, which is a really pale kind of lavender, almost a little pinky, and then I moved into kind of a medium purple. Sorry for all these ends here, I have not woven them in yet. And then I moved into a variegated skein, and I was not sure whether or not I was going to like it, but I think I do, and I do think the blue here picks up some of these bits of darker blue in the skein. So I think that my colors actually are very true to what is in this yarn. And now I have moved into kind of a darker blue, and it's got bits of pink and purple in it. It's a little bit hard to see. It's mostly a semi-solid. So that is as far as I am right now. And then I have two more to add. I have this one that's got blue. It moves sort of more towards blue and gray, but still has a few pops of pink and a few pops of lavender. And then the final one is this dark gray, and it's actually sparkly, and you can see the sparkles there. And then there will be a little bit more of the main color as a border. So I am pleased with this one. I was trying to complete this for my sister's birthday, which is at the end of the month. I do believe I will complete it this week because I don't have that much more knitting, and I'm hoping that I'm gonna like the overall finished piece. I will tell you, I'm a little bit undecided about this variegated one in there. I do think it picks up the other colors in the shawl just fine, but I'm not 100% sold on the sort of two solids, variegated and solid, but then I will add another variegated in there, so we'll see how this goes. And I think I'm going to keep going because I still think it's going to make an interesting shawl wrap, and all the colors really do fit in together. Like I said, the blue really does pick up the blue in the other yarn. So I think it's going to be okay, and I'm going to like it when it's done, but I'm going to carry on. So again, that is Rainbow Wings by Mina Phillip. I believe I can't remember what needle size it calls for. I am using a 5. It may call for 6. I do tend to drop at least one needle size when I knit things, so I might be knitting it on a needle one size smaller, but otherwise I'm making no modification. Well, okay, I will make a few modifications to the pattern. I do think she originally knit it in a main color, and then I want to say 7 or 8 mini skeins. It was a set of mini skeins. I think it was 7 because I think it was Roy G. Biv. It was a rainbow, hence the name Rainbow Wings. And I only pulled aside, well, originally I pulled aside 8 minis, but I pulled it back to 6 minis. So my modification may be that I do one fewer short row section, but I don't think that's going to make a difference in the, I mean, it's not going to make that much of a difference in the overall width. It'll be, you know, an inch or two up here, but I don't think that's that significant, and I don't think it's going to change like the wearability of the shawl that much. And I could always just keep going with this one until my yarn runs out. I have slightly more than the pattern called for. She called for a 400 yard skein, and this one is 463 yards. So I could just keep knitting this until I run out, and I may. We'll just see how that goes. So I plan to hopefully finish this week. The mini sections here were taking me about an hour, so I just have a few more hours worth of work on this one. Sorry for all the ends. Next time you see it, it will probably be washed, blocked, and the ends will be woven in, so we will not have to talk about them. So that is the other knitting project that I am working on this week. So to round that out, I'm going to talk about the next sample, because of course if I cast off a sample, it is time to cast on a sample. The next sample that I'm doing is the Next Blanket Club for Zen Yarn Garden, and every year they produce a blanket pattern, and we start knitting in the fall and finish in the spring. And it is a subscription club where you get a few skeins of yarn every other month, and then we also have meetups where we talk about the knit along and go over the techniques in the knit along. This time we are knitting the 10-stitch blanket, and her name is Frankie, and I cannot remember her last name. It will be in the show notes. It is a pattern that is available for free on Ravelry. I don't know if it is available elsewhere. I will have to look, and I do realize that there are accessibility issues there, so if it's only available on Ravelry, it will not be linked in my show notes, but the pattern name and the designer will be there. The 10-stitch blanket is a free pattern, and it is literally a blanket that starts with 10 stitches, and then it continues to work around. This pattern that that is right behind me is also by the same designer, and this is also her 10-stitch pattern, but this is knit in a circle. So you start at the very center, and you work outwards almost like, I'm hoping you can see this, you work outwards almost like a snail, and you continue to work. And I don't remember, I think this is 10 stitches. I did this one in fingering weight. Obviously you can knit them in whatever weight you would like, just use the appropriate needle size and follow the instructions, and you can knit them as small or as large as you want. So I knit mine out of an Opal Advent kit, which they used to do. They haven't done in the last few years. They were quite expensive to produce all the mini skeins of yarn and then box them up in an Advent kit, but I bought one, and then I had a couple other minis from Opal in an exchange, and it looks like I put on the last little bit of a few I believe I did the border on this with one of the Opal Sweet and Spicy colorways that I had made socks out of, and then I used up the last little bit. So, and technically I bound this off, but I did the finish, and then actually I never wound in the ends. I left the last little bit of yarn attached because my thought was that if they produced another advent calendar or more minis in the future, I might actually want to increase the size. So this sits behind me, and I love all the colors, and so that is the concept for this pattern, except that it is a square. So you start at the center, and then you do some mitered corner pieces, and you continue to work it around. So the Blanket Club will be featuring the Zen Yarn Garden Nightshade colors in Nightshade Worsted, and I have a few of the colors here with me, not all of them because I have a couple of them that are already wound, but these are some of the colors. It is just going to be a sort of primary colored, well, it's not primary, it will be a kind of rainbow colored. I've got some turquoise blues, some dark blues, some greens, some reds, some oranges, all kinds of colors, and I think this is just going to be a kind of a rainbow fun blanket. It's probably going to take me the next month and a half to 2 months, so you will see it a lot. I actually have not started it. I have the first skein wound, and that is a project for tonight, so that is something that I will be sharing with you very soon. And then just down the road, once I finish this shawl, I need to do that baby hat that I have been talking about, and then my plan is to cast on a sweater for myself. So let's switch topics briefly, and let's talk about embroidery, which is not a thing that I often talk about, but I had showed you a kit that I got from M Creative J, and I will link that in my show notes. She is a producer of botanical embroidery patterns and kits, and I had the opportunity to review a kit of hers. I will say I was provided the kit for free in exchange for doing a review on my YouTube channel and blog, so I did not receive any other compensation than a free kit, and all patterns that I include here are my own, just to give you the appropriate disclaimers. Like I said, M Creative J is a crafting business focused on botanical art, and she likes crewel, C-R-E-W-E-L, and also embroidery, and she sells a variety of patterns in an Etsy shop, and then on her own website she sells a variety of kits. And I was sent a small kit for review called Positive Plants, and I'll show you that in just a moment. And what I wanted to talk about is how much I really enjoyed this kit. I am a dedicated knitter and spinner. I have a loom, and I do a little bit of sewing, and I often say that I do not need another craft because I absolutely do not need another stash. And what I love about these kits is that they have everything you possibly need in them. So this is the kit. This is finished, and it is called Positive Plants, and it came with 4 separate designs, or I should say 4 separate sayings. This one says you are enough, but there are others that say you are loved, you are magic, and I think you are strong. And then it came with it came with the design for the plants around it. So the kit included everything you see here, which means it included the hoop, it included the indigo dyed fabric that you are embroidering on, it includes the 4 colors of embroidery floss used, the 3 shades of green and the black. It also included a piece of water-soluble transfer paper, so you could trace your design onto the transfer paper. You could stick, the paper is sticky, and so you can stick it right on your fabric and use that to stitch your design over the lines. So the only things I needed to provide to do this project were a pencil and a pair of scissors. That's it. Everything else came in the kit. So I used my pencil to trace the pattern onto this sheet of basically tracing paper, and then it had kind of a sticky backing, a little bit like Post-its. It was a little stickier than that, but I stuck it on there and then I could sew through it. The kit included a needle. It included a little piece of felt to use as a needle minder, so that's what the needle was poked through when it arrived. Like I said, it included the 4 shades of DMC embroidery floss, and then just to be very, very complete, it included a piece of felt so that you could create the backing on your embroidered piece. And the only thing I have not added is it did also include a kind of sawtooth edged hook, so I could sew a hook to the back of this so that I could hang it on a wall. So like I said, the kit included everything I needed except for my sewing scissors, which I used to snip threads and cut out the transfer design in a circle and then the felt in a circle, but everything else was included in the box. The pattern included instructions, which included the pattern that you could trace and then instructions on how to start and how to embroider. This little piece used 3 stitches. It used back stitching for the lettering, it used stem stitching for the stems of the plants, and then it used a lazy daisy stitch for the leaves. And it had photos for each of these stitches as well as a verbal explanation of how to do them. And then the whole thing had approximately 7 or 8 steps that talked about the order in which to do the order in which to do the needlework, and then also covering how to finish it on the back, how to wash it, how to finish it on the back, and all of those things. So it was a super fun project. I would say this took me somewhere between 3 and 4 hours. I did most of it on Saturday. I did a little bit on Sunday, and then I washed it, and some of the time was just waiting for it to dry. I washed it just as I finished most of my projects with a little bit of Eucalan. I let it soak in the sink and that transfer paper just completely dissolved off. I did give it a rinse, which technically you don't have to do for Eucalan. I gave it a rinse because there was a little bit of residue from the transfer paper. So I wanted to be sure to do that because I didn't want that stuck on there. I gave it a little bit of a rinse, and then what I did is it was a like rectangular piece of fabric, and so I put the piece of fabric on my blocking boards. So I rolled it dry in a clean towel, and then I put it on my blocking boards, and I went ahead and gave it a little bit of stretch to make sure that all the wrinkles were out, and went ahead and used some blocking pins just kind of at the 4 corners to keep it, well, actually I think I did kind of 8, 4 corners and then in between, just to keep it a little bit taut so that when I put it back in the frame, it would not have any wrinkles in this section. I do know that some people for their embroidery and cross stitch after laundering use an iron to just kind of steam it to lay flat. I did not need to do that, and I don't think you can see anything on here that's really problematic. So for my first little piece, I think it was kind of fun. Like I said, it was just a few hour project, and I loved that everything is in the kit. I do obviously have leftover, they sent me full skeins of DMC floss, so I have leftovers from that. But otherwise I have no leftover, well, and the needle. But otherwise I have no leftovers, which is really nice. And I might already have another one of her kits in my cart, and like I said, I popped over to her Etsy shop, and she's got tons and tons of patterns there, patterns only. So if you are an embroiderer or you already have a lot of the supplies and you're just looking for some cute designs, I would totally suggest you look there. I will put links to both her website and the Etsy shop in the show notes, and I will also be doing a blog post probably tomorrow or Wednesday that have like all my in-progress photos as I did this, although some of them are on Some of them are on Instagram as well, and it will have links to some of the other projects that I find interesting on her website and the other kit that I'm thinking about purchasing. So nothing but praise for this little project. If you are thinking about trying something, I think a kit is the best way to do it, particularly when it has everything you need so that you don't have to go out and buy random supplies. Also, I will say her kits are very reasonable. I think this one retails for around between 25 and 30, and I know that some of the more advanced kits that I was looking at, which are both larger and more full coverage, run up to about $48. But I think for a full project with all the supplies you need, if you went out and tried to buy the hoop and all the DMC floss and the fabric and whatever, plus the pattern, you might end up spending more than that for the kit. So I really do love these, specifically for people who want to dabble a little bit. But of course, this may introduce you to a new hobby that you love. So that is my Positive Plants Kit by M Creative J. And again, all the information will be in the show notes on this episode. And look for, if you were really interested and want to see more in progress photos, look for the blog post that will be coming soon. So let me take a quick sip of tea. We'll talk about spinning and I will get you out of here. So spinning, I do have a finished spin. It is still a little crinkly and it needs a good washing, but I finished the Tide Pool, which was by Southern Cross Fibers. It is a merino blend and it is just gorgeous. Now this is a very semi-solid skein. You can see a little bit of variation there, but it is definitely one color. It is this gorgeous tealy, sort of, it's not turquoise, but it's kind of a bright teal. It is precisely a Tide Pool. And this was from David of Southern Cross Fibers. This was a semi-solid that went with something a while back, and I don't even remember what it was, what it went with, but it is absolutely gorgeous. It's spun nice and thin. I would reckon that I'll get probably close to 400 yards on this one, and it is just beautiful. I think it would be great. It would be a great accent to another more brightly colored skein of handspun, which is a lot of what I do in my shop, or it would just be lovely on its own, and I think there will be enough for a shawlette. So I need to wash it and thwack it and get it measured and glamour shots for the site, but this will go up on Etsy sometime this week, and look forward to that. So the next, and I did not take this out of the package and braid it, and I should have, so I'll do it while I talk to you. Next up on my wheel is going to be a spin from Hello Yarn, and I apologize for the crinkling. This was July 2021's Fiber Club. It is called Gleaming, and it is a Targhee or Tarhi wool top, which means it is bright and squishy and fluffy, and it is bright colors. It almost makes me think of a roll of Lifesavers, actually. Or maybe Skittles, or I'm trying to think, maybe Starburst. Because it's just got such bright, fun colors. This definitely kind of screams summer, and this will definitely be going in the shop. So if these are your colors, and I don't know, it's not quite the right color, but I think those would actually look okay together. This one doesn't have as much of the teal in it, but this is a really great braid. It's got kind of a raspberry and a cherry and a strawberry, and then it goes into a little bit of orange, and then you've got a very little bit of yellow and minty green and blue, and it is just tons of fun. So that is what I'm going to be starting this week. I should say, oh, you know what? I missed one. So this is what I'm going to be starting when I finish my current spin. My current spin is a braid that I showed you last week, which also has tons of fun color, and that is from Nitty and Color. This is the first bobbin. I'm already partway through the second bobbin, and this had primarily pinks and blues and purples, but it also had some reds and greens and yellows in it. So I think this one is going to end up a little bit rainbow, despite what it looks like on the bobbin right now, where it leans very heavily towards pink and purple and blue. It did have some other colors in here, and it also had some black in here. So I think think it is just going to be kind of a fun, but maybe even a little bit muted tone. So I'm excited about this one, although you can see like the hot pink, almost neon pink in there. So Knitty in Color does really, really bright colors, and I love it. So I'm finishing up Knitty in Color, and then next on my wheel will be the Hello Yarn Fiber, and if any of these interest you, you can contact me or just wait for them to appear in my Etsy shop. So I hope that your week is off to a good start. I hope that you have some crafty pursuits that you're enjoying. I am feeling the urge to knit all the things and craft all the things right now. And the only thing that frustrates me is that I don't seem to have enough hours in the day to do everything that I want. I am just feeling super inspired, and I don't know if it's because I am turning to that in a time when the rest of the world is so uncertain, or I am just finding peace in it, but I am just really, really enjoying my crafting right now, and I'm so glad that you are here to, that I can share it with you a little bit, and that you are joining me here. So if this was your first time viewing, thanks for tuning in. I don't always have a product review, but the knitting and spinning sections are almost always here. If you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for spending another half hour with me as I babble on about my crafts. And I will say, as I always do, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye.